The unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth. The unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even 100,000 kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth. The unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth.
We've been reading Dogen Zenji's Fukanzazengi, and this is one part of it. The Zazen I speak of is not meditation practice. It is simply the Dharma gate of joyful ease. The practice realization of totally culminated enlightenment. It is the koan realized. Traps and snares can never reach it. If you grasp this point, you are like a dragon gaining the water, like a tiger taking to the mountains. For you must know that the true Dharma appears of itself, so that from the start, dullness and distraction are struck aside. Yesterday I mentioned the Japanese proverb about the deer hunter. I don't know if you were all there or not. This proverb goes like this: the deer hunter doesn't see the mountains. And this morning I learned from Dogen that deer hunters in this area don't chase deer, they sit in trees. And they wait for the deer to come to them. So maybe I should explain the image that I had in mind. Of course, Japanese proverb, Japan is a mountainous country. I picture a Japanese man, maybe he has straw sandals on, maybe this was some time ago. Bow and arrow, quiver full of arrows, and he's off quietly walking in the mountains. His objective is to kill a deer, and eventually he sees one in the distance, and so very quietly he's walking after the deer. Perhaps at a certain point, the deer realizes, there's somebody following me, and then it's a question: can the deer hunter kill the deer or not? In our Zazen practice, this is a metaphor for us, the person practicing Zazen, and our method. Some people follow the breath. Some people are working with mu, or some people are just sitting, and so on. But I was always taught that in the case of Zazen, of practice, that the deer and the practitioner are one. And if these two are separate, then we are not studying the self. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Dogen Zenji's teaching, probably his most famous teaching. To study the self is to forget the self. And by the middle day of Sesshin, which is today, everybody is tired. But not only us, the deer is also tired. In terms of the method, it really doesn't matter if you're tired or not. But at that point, realizing that we're tired, it's necessary to once again make that vow to get the deer. If we're really one with the deer, and there's no separation, then we're very close to realizing Dogen Zenji's teaching here, presented in Fukanzazengi. That Zazen is not meditation practice. This is a great teaching, but I'm wondering to myself, how many people here in the United States who practice Zazen think of it as meditation? And what's the difference? That seems to me to be a perfectly great koan in its own right. But whether it's mu or a koan that's coming out of your own life, the important thing is to be the koan. If we are separate from the koan, or if we are separate from the deer, then it's very possible that all the effort we make will be in vain. In Japanese, this expression is iwayuru zazen wa shuzen ni arazu. This word shuzen literally means learning Zen. Translated in various places, learning meditation, step-by-step meditation, not meditation practice. This is the sense we have that there's still something left to learn. But Dogen's intention, I believe, isn't about learning, about hearing another podcast, reading another book, memorizing another sutra. It's now, the moment now. And as I mentioned earlier, the teaching that the method itself is the result. That's the proof. This is practice and realization are one. Or as he sometimes said, the subtle practice of original enlightenment. So I encourage you to think about that matter of meditation and Zazen. A question well worth taking to Doksan, I think. It often happens that we memorize our master's words, and then we try to do just like what the master said. Harada Roshi said this, or Karagiri Roshi said that, or Suzuki Roshi said that, and I've done that myself. But the problem is, we can't really do it the way they said it, because we remember their words and interpret them in our own way. So we create an image of what he was saying. And as long as we remember those words, there's an obstacle there. We won't really be able to be one with Zazen. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the story of the Buddha. At the end of his life, it was time to choose his successor. And all he did was hold up a flower. He had been giving the 84,000 teachings, but at the end of his life, it was time, okay, who understands? And it was Mahakashapa who smiled. The Dharma was transmitted to Mahakashapa. And later on, the Buddha said, in 49 years of teaching, not one word of truth has been expounded. In other words, all of the sutras, all of the words that he had said were simply explanations. That's not to say it's wrong to study or bad to study. But I encourage you to choose wisely and really digest completely what you read so that you can let it go completely. Sometimes the thought might arise, I've practiced this much. But in this case, we're still holding on to what I've done, what you've done. And so that means there is something left to do. My teacher often talked about, we build up the practice and then it falls down, it falls apart. And we build it up again and it falls apart. You may think that you haven't done enough zazen or made enough effort, but in this case, without realizing it, our zazen becomes learning meditation. In Sesshin, we are encouraged to diligently continue with our method, with zazen. To make diligent effort means that if the power of our method is strong, then other thoughts will not enter. They'll just ricochet off your zazen. But if it's weak, then we're consumed by thoughts. So to be diligent, that means to stay with your method to the extent that other thoughts don't arise. That doesn't require some great amount of physical force. It's simply your intention, your aspiration to be one with Zazen. And then Dogen continues, it is the manifestation of ultimate reality. Or, in this version that we're reading, it is the koan realized. Koan, in this sense, is something that cannot be broken, like a law. Something that cannot be violated. In the Soto sect, we don't hear a lot about koans, but my teacher often said that it's quite easy to get stuck in the idea of just sitting. Just. And in order to check and see if a person is stuck, well, tell me, who's sitting in front of me? Or what is the essence of the Buddha Dharma? Or why isn't Zazen meditation? Shikantaza, mu, or a koan from your own life. This is the koan manifested. You might be confused. You might be consumed by greed, anger, and delusion. In whatever condition it is, that's it. That's completely your condition. There are said to be 1,700 koans. But Harada Roshi always said to me, if you can penetrate one of them, then it isn't necessary to look at any more of them. There's a very well-known story between the third and fourth ancestor in China. Daidoshi, very young man at that time, he came to his teacher, Kanchi Sozan. Please take away that which is binding me or restricting me, he said. And the third ancestor said, who is it that's binding you? Who's restricting you? And with that one question, Daidoshi experienced a great awakening. I think it's important to remember that throughout history, relatively few people have had awakening while they were sitting in Zazen. Which is to say, again, that our everyday life is Zazen, or that we live within Zazen, such that everything we do is Zazen. And Dogen continues, if you attain this, you are like a dragon that has obtained water, or a tiger that reclines on a mountain. The true Dharma then appears of itself, and you will be free of dullness and distraction. Now, we've been sitting here for 3 days, and it often happens, if you've been sitting for a longer time, that we sink into a condition of dullness. This can also happen with distraction. These are in opposition to each other. Distraction, of course, is something we're all familiar with, right? Just can't seem to concentrate on one thing. So many thoughts arising, but then on the other hand, dullness. And people can think that that's good. Feels comfortable, it's quiet, nothing's happening. It's not necessarily that you're doing Zazen, you're in a kind of feeling of just being there. Quiet, maybe, you feel empty. You're not doing your method. But that does not mean that you're one with Zazen. On the other hand, you might be distracted. Oh, yeah, that's just the way it is. I'm going to leave it as it is. This is a case of where you have heard the teaching and you use the teaching. Oh, I'll just leave it that way. But Dogen Zenji is telling us that for someone who has obtained the water like a dragon, or is reclining on a mountain like a tiger, that they have cast aside dullness and distraction. So be careful of that sense of dullness. Stay with your method. The Dharma appears of itself. This is our condition as it is right now. And some might think, well, in that case, I'll just do whatever I want. It's not necessary to do anything. But that's something you've decided. That isn't necessarily the way the true Dharma is. So there are obstacles as we sit a longer time. Generally speaking, if you've been sitting for 3 days, 4 days, the sitting becomes easier. The body adjusts to the discomfort. But in connection with Zazen, the true Dharma is Zazen itself, the thing itself, where there is neither dullness nor distraction. Earlier in the Fukanzazengi, Dogen Zenji says, don't think good or bad. Don't watch your Zazen. Be careful of this. We have a tendency to watch, oh, is it going good? Yeah, I'm sitting well. It's going good. Or, whoa, not sitting well. Bad. I can't sit well. Over and over we're taught, don't do that. Don't. In fact, we can't really see our Zazen. It's only a shadow that we see afterwards. In any case, don't get stuck in just sitting. I'm just sitting. Just. As I said on the first day, quoting my master, we've got to grind up just. The Zazen I speak of is not meditation practice. It is simply the Dharma gate of joyful ease, the practice realization of totally culminated enlightenment. It is the koan realized. Traps and snares can never reach it. If you grasp this point, you are like a dragon gaining the water, like a tiger taking to the mountains. For you must know that the true Dharma appears of itself, so that from the start, dullness and distraction are struck aside. I wanted to end again with some words from my teacher. I'm not sure how many of you, I see one or two of you out there who had the good fortune of meeting Harada Roshi. He was here at Hokyoji, I think in 1993. Is that correct? 92, 93. We'll have to look at the history book. He passed away just about 2 months ago, June 20th, at the age of 93. And for the last 10 years of his life or so, he was unable to speak. He'd had a stroke, and that ability to speak it seems it just gradually went away. I was living in the States at that time, so I was not around him. I would come and visit once a year and gradually notice that, but 10 years ago, I got an email from Hoshinji. And this is the last teaching that came directly from him. So this was written out in an email. And it's dated August 8th, 2010, so just 10 years ago. At Hoshinji, we had Sesshin 3 in the spring, 3 in the fall. So it begins this way. As we approach the autumn Sesshin, there's something I've been thinking about lately that I want to convey to you. There is nothing bigger than Zen, and there is nothing smaller than Zen. Zen is simply Zen. If you sit thinking, that something will appear that's not already here, that isn't Zazen at all. If the thought arises, this sitting is a good thing, that also is not Zazen. Even if you think of nothing while you're sitting, nothing remains. It is necessary to sit and eliminate nothing, or grind up nothing. Zen isn't something to speak about, so I sit without saying anything. This is the 9 years facing a wall that Great Master Bodhidharma sat. If Great Master Bodhidharma sat for 9 years, I will sit for 18 years, twice as long as he did. He was 83 at this time. The wall of facing a wall refers to all things in this world. I will only sit quietly, facing all those walls. Unfortunately, and now he's talking about Japan, not America. The situation now in Japan is one which has been turned upside down. Zen has become a commercial product, where various people, equipment, and buildings are necessary because of the bright and splendid ceremonies. While I cannot deny this sad situation, where it has come to be like this, I would like you to always remember that even within this situation, Zen has always been sitting. And the only thing necessary to do this is a place to sit. We all have a place to sit. Today, we are now at the end of the middle day, but this is a shorter session than usual. There's really only one whole day left of session. There's still plenty of time to sit just as you would like to sit. Sit, sit, sit. Be one with sitting.
Intentionally penetrate every being and place with the trueness of Buddha's way. Beings are numberless. I vow to freedom. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to turn them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Beings are boundless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to enter them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable.